Yeah.
So once you kind of got to the root of things, so this is me partially asking for myself. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like it can be a little overwhelming.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that journey. Like, how did you, because it's not like you knew a ton of stuff. So it wasn't like
Yeah.
you're coming in from no knowledge, but how do you approach this in a way that you're not so overwhelmed that you give up?
Yeah. Yeah. It can be very overwhelming. I always say, like, you can't try to go. Let me back up. The best way I tell clients is I'm at step 50. I did not start at step 50. I started at step 2, right? And a lot of times we can say, like, well, I want to be at step 50. So we're at step 2, but we're wanting to jump up to step 50. And I'm like, that's when it feels wildly overwhelming because there are a whole lot of steps and processes that you need to learn about yourself and master and become consistent with before you're at step 50. So when you're working, we'll have clients come in and be like, well, I can't live the way you live. And I'm like, well, eventually you can, but right now, yes, correct. This would be very overwhelming for you and not the way that you are expected to do things. You want to start foundationally and start simply. It's really, kind of like what you talk about, right? When we're looking at overriding the stories you tell yourself, looking at the way that you do things, start with your lifestyle. Start with one simple spot. Look at, how do I wake up in the morning and am I grabbing my phone first thing? Let me set my phone down, and maybe instead of spending 10 minutes on my phone, I can spend 10 minutes prepping a meal that's going to nourish me and make me feel really good. And if that's all I focus on this week, then fantastic. That's a win. You're moving in a good direction. Coming back to that snack wells generation, we sometimes start with this thought process of, I have to do it all, and I have to do it all perfectly, or I'm failing and I'm not going to do any of it. So you really have to, like you talk about, hold the mirror up to yourself of like, why am I putting this level of expectation on myself to be perfect? Because it's literally at the end of the day, a lifestyle change. And
Mhm.
you cannot change your entire life overnight. You've got to take it in layers and steps and processes. I started with prioritizing super simple things with my routine. My relationship with food and my health and my body has evolved over an 18 period of time. So if you look at it as, I have the rest of my life to make these small shifts and changes, I don't have to have it all mastered right now. I can take one step today that's going to make me feel better tomorrow. And then tomorrow I'll take another step that's going to make me feel better the next day. And if you do those small shifts, then you're going to look back 5 years from now and you're going to be like, wow, look at everything that I have shifted in that time frame.
I love that. Yes, because my typical client is all or nothing. She
Yeah.
is black and white. She is tends to be a perfectionist. If she can't do it perfect, she doesn't want to do it at all because failure is terrifying to her. So I love that what you just said. I have the rest of my life to make small incremental changes over time.
Yeah.
And it's just like we know the stuff from text. The books will say like small changes over time yield big results. And it's still, it applies to business, but it applies to our health. So that's
Mm-hmm.
encouraging for me. Okay, so a hot topic that I think is pretty hot now, even on, at least in my news feed, probably because I'm looking up the stuff, but let's talk a little bit about cortisol uh,
Yeah.
and like how that impacts women.
Yeah. Cortisol gets a bad rap. It's not a bad hormone. It's actually an essential hormone. And this
Mhm.
kind of goes into what we just talked about with the all in or all out mindset and approach. I usually tell my clients, because similar, I have clients and I'm the same personality where, right, you're an achiever personality. You like to do everything well, and that's not a bad thing. But I usually tell my clients what makes you successful in your business or your career is going to be what's detrimental to you in your health. And you need to learn that balance between those things of when do I apply this and when do I pull it back? And cortisol is a direct reflection of the way that we live our life and we do things. Cortisol essentially is your stress response. It's your stress hormone. Every time that you have, something, cortisol is going to respond. Cortisol through the day should be higher in the morning because it actually is what wakes you up in the morning, and it should gradually decrease at night. And in exchange, you can start to see that melatonin come in the evening with that exchange of cortisol to help support quality of sleep. Now, your cortisol rhythm is going to shift day by day. So we do adrenal testing, but for very different reasons. When we're working with someone, you can't look at an adrenal test and think that that's what's happening with your body day in and day out. You actually need to judge by how is my body actually processing and using this cortisol? Am I in a chronic state of stress? Meaning like I've been living in this go, go, go attitude for a long period of time to the point that my body's like, hands up, like surrendering and like, I can't keep up with you anymore. You have not given me any rest. A lot of this can come back to your brain, your pituitary hormone, your nervous system regulation, and how those things can really come into play to helping to support. I tell our clients all the time, I'm like, if Jesus needed to retreat to do some restorative time, so do you. And you need to keep in mind that you were not designed to go 24/7 like we try to live in society. So you have to strategically put restorative time in your day. A good sign to tell that your cortisol may be an issue or the way that you handle stress may be an issue is if you can't sit down for 20 minutes and do absolutely nothing and be still.